hops, hop extract, barley, water, and corn syrup. Bud Light, brewed with no corn syrup.
All right.
Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB, St. Louis, Missouri.
Getting
Based on
ready
information available at MillerCoors.com as of
for
January
the show to
16,
start.
2019.
Coastal Tractor has moved, but they
Thank
still
you,
have the
everyone, for
compact
joining.
tractors that are rugged, reliable,
And,
smooth, and smart.
we're gonna get this
They're the
going
compact
in just a
Workmaster
second.
tractors from New Holland. They tackle your tough chores from loading and mowing to rotary cutting. Plus, you get smooth, comfortable operation and great visibility. Best of all, Workmaster tractors go easy on your wallet, making them a smart choice indeed. Stop by Coastal Tractors in their new location at 2348 Golden Hill Road in the Old Truck Center.
It's that time, Central Coast. Time for the SLO Late Show. Now, your host, Alex Klepper and Bobby Goodsby.
All right. It is finally here, the day that Bobby and myself, Alex Klepper, have been waiting for a long time. The rebirth, the reincarnation, the return of the SLO Late Show. Hope you remember us from years past. A couple of different iterations of the show have now been on the air, but we believe this time it's going to be the time that we make it a big, I would say about a month or two, we should be replacing Dan Patrick here in this station. But you know what? Maybe we'll set our sights a little bit lower and a couple of months. Very good to be back on the air on ESPN Radio 1280 here in San Luis Obispo County, 101.7 FM in the North County. Pastor Robles at Hascadero, you can finally hear us. I know. You've been banging down my door saying what happened last time. But we do have signal up there now. Thank you to Mike Chelson, Bill Bordeaux, and the entire crew here at ESPN Radio 1280. We are very much very happy to be up north here in San Luis Obispo and everywhere in the world on TuneIn Radio. We're also doing a live stream on YouTube. Hello to all you YouTube people. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Alex Klepper here and Bobby Goodsby is on his way. He will be here in about 10 minutes, so you will hear his sultry voice in just a few minutes. We're talking everything NBA playoffs tonight. A couple of very good games. The first game, it was entertaining. Giannis did his thing, 39 points for the Greek Freak. And then the real star of the evening, Golden State, Houston winning that one 112-108. The series is now tied at 2 games apiece. They're going back to Oakland for game number 5 in a couple of days. We will break all that down. We will break down the UFC as we do here on the SLO Late Show. If you have listened to us before, once again, thank you for joining us once again, whether you just happened to stumble upon us or you saw any of my annoying tweets today, you happen to see the Instagram posts, whatever. Thank you for joining us. But if you have joined us before, we like to talk some UFC, we like to talk MMA in general, and it's really one of our things we like to do that specializes us here, not only being the Central Coast home for the late night sports talk show. I guess we do have companions now in the Slowpoke guys, and happy to listen to them on our old spot and Wednesday nights, 10 to midnight. But we're now doing it Mondays, and once again, we could not be happier. So we'll talk UFC. Donald Cerrone, a big win this past weekend over Raging Ally Quinta. We'll break that down. We'll break down the upcoming UFC event from Rio de Janeiro, UFC 237, with Rose Namajunas finally getting back in the cage and defending her title against Jessica Andrade. We'll probably talk some NHL playoffs. If you noticed one of my pauses, it was because I was slightly heartbroken. I had to repair that heart right back together again with some super glue because my San Jose Sharks just got beaten overtime by the Colorado Avalanche. It is now tied to 3 games apiece in that series, so they will have a game 7. And do not eat any cholesterol-heavy foods. Don't have too much caffeine for game 7 because that's already going to be stressful enough. You don't need anything else that could possibly trigger some sort of cardiac event. So we'll talk about that. We got to talk some NFL. I mean, even though it's not NFL season, the draft is now about a week and a half, 2 weeks past. I don't know. Everything goes so quickly nowadays once you hit the almost 30 phase. But we will talk some NFL. Bobby, the NFL fantasy football god. I don't know why I had to clarify that with NFL. Fantasy football god. Apparently he won $8,000 in DraftKings earlier this year. And I will let him explain on the air not only how he did that, but what he did with that winnings, because I was disappointed by what he did. Also, IRS, if you're listening, this is all a joke. Bobby, I hope you did yourself right. And we'll talk about that. Ryan Shazier lighting up the dance floor, which is maybe the feel-good moment of the week. And everything else in the world of sports. Kentucky Derby. Do I care? Do I really care? I don't know. We'll talk about that. But we'll start with the NBA because it just ended here. Golden State, Houston, like we said at the top of the show, tied at 2 games apiece now. James Harden tonight, 38 points, 10 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks. Did take 29 shots, 13 of 29 from the field, 6 for 17 from deep, 6 for 8 from the free throw line. Kevin Durant continued to do his big thing in the playoffs, 34 points, 7 boards, 5 dimes, 12 of 22 shooting. Steph Curry appearance. He had a very poor game, maybe one of his poorest playoff games since the Golden State Warriors became a juggernaut. Last game out tonight, 30 points, 8 assists, 12 of 25 from the field. Still not great shooting, but did put up 30 points. A very exciting game, really close throughout. And can we say now that this is going to be a series akin to last year's Western Conference Finals when it went to Game 7? And in my mind, in my opinion, the only reason that we did not see Houston move on to the NBA Finals was Chris Paul's hamstring. And if you ask Mike D'Antoni, James Harden, Daryl Morey, and the entire Houston Rockets organization, heck, the entire city of Houston, maybe, the whole reason why that they didn't go to the NBA Finals was because of the foul disparity. We may talk about that, but that hopefully people have forgot about that whole thing after Game 1, and are now focusing on the excellent play coming from this series, because not only is this series has it lived up to the hype through the first 4 games, but I think you could say every series except for Milwaukee-Boston, which was the game earlier tonight, has lived up to the billing. And granted, it's easy to say when all those series are tied at 2 games apiece, but they've really been close games. And we'll talk more about Toronto, Philadelphia, and Denver, Portland as we head into the show. But we really don't take this for granted, basketball fans. And even if you're just a passing basketball fan, you're just a casual fan of sports, do yourself a service and watch some of these games, because we are in really a golden age of basketball right now. With the way that James Harden is carrying his team with his monstrous night-by-night performances, averaging almost 36 points per game in the 6 games of this series, or the 4 games of this series so far. The continued dominance of Kevin Durant, the, I guess, drama you could say behind Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, Boogie Cousins. Now reports come out today that Klay Thompson may be considering going to the Clippers if the Golden State Warriors don't give him a max deal. Don't take this for granted, because this series may be the last time we see these guys all together playing against each other. And this could be a timeless series, even though we're only in the second round. It really is something that you need to pinch yourself and say, wow, did we already forget about the 4 overtime classic from Friday night in Portland in the Rose City? It's basketball all around. It's everything we wanted from the playoffs so far, and at least 3 of these 4 series. One thing I want to talk about with this series in particular, the Golden State Houston series, my guy James Harden. Now, I haven't always been the biggest Harden fan, and I think maybe you could say I almost flip-flopped in the opposite of public opinion, which, granted, if you know me, that may not be a huge surprise. I'm a rebel. I don't like to do the mainstream thing, brother, as you can tell by my Sacramento Kings hat if you're watching the YouTube live stream. But James Harden, he seemed to be, a pretty popular guy when he was with Oklahoma City. In his opening days in Houston, he's kind of a party guy. He fit into the kind of the youth culture and the rap culture, and he was always seen out partying. And if you could say even he was popular because of the memes that he generated because of his terrible defense. And in those days, he didn't seem like he was going to be the guy who was going to be able to live up to maybe the possibilities of what his career could be if he really challenged himself. And it was going to be disappointing that he never got the chance to play for a title, or I guess he had a chance to play for a title in Oklahoma City, but he never won one with that crazy cast of characters they had back in the day. And then he goes to Houston and gets Dwight Howard, and they flame out in the playoffs time and time again. And they finally get to the conference finals. Last year, he loses his number one running mate in Chris Paul. And now this year, he came back with one of the seasons for the ages, over 36 points per game in the regular season, which has not been done since Michael Jordan. And somehow that has turned into almost a negative. Granted, he doesn't have the most, he doesn't have the Golden State Warriors type of basketball, the offensive game where there's four guys who can shoot and they're all going to play make and they're all going to, have a beautiful game like you might borrow from soccer. It's James Harden. Chris Paul makes some plays, obviously one of the great point guards of all time, but everything runs through James Harden, and people don't like his herky jerky style, his hopping back to the 3-point line, the fact that he shoots so much, the fact that he really goes for only 3 different options. It was almost like the 3 true options in baseball: the 3-pointer, the drive, or the free throw. If you can't see what James Harden has done this year and acknowledge that if Giannis Antetokounmpo, nailed on my first time, very, very proud of myself, if he didn't have an otherworldly year as well, then we would be talking about James Harden as having one of the most dominant MVP seasons in history. He has single-handedly carried this Houston team to heights that, after the first month of the season, when they were 11-14, people thought maybe they were off their rocker and off the top of the mountaintop, and they were going to no longer be a team that could challenge the Golden State Warriors. He single-handedly carried this team, a team that had guys like Daniel House come in and play big minutes for them. And part of the reason why these no-name guys that you hadn't heard of before went and performed so well is because James Harden is just that good. Not only creating points for himself, but creating points for his teammates. He came into the season in incredible shape. I would not want to run into James Harden in the Firestone line like I did with Chuck Liddell. Almost knocked me over back in the day. If I ran into James Harden in the Firestone line, he would knock me over, and that wouldn't even be because of his malice. That would just be because he's ripped. And we saw in the past when he had those memes and the YouTube clips where people would laugh at him about his defense, that he was not in the best shape and he had to save himself for offense. But this year, granted, he's not Klay Thompson, he's not Kawhi Leonard on the defensive end, but he's become a passable defender. And his effort shows that. And if you cannot appreciate what James Harden has done, then you really can only fit yourself into a niche basketball fan, or a casual, because you can't appreciate different styles of basketball. It's like when people say, well, the 80s basketball is the best, or when Michael Jordan was playing with iso ball and he had, Steve Kerr and Scottie Pippen and Luke Longley, all those guys. Luke Longley, he's just the fourth name that came in my head. He wasn't really super big on that team, but you really could only like a certain style of basketball. Maybe you're a Golden State purist and you love the way they play and the way that Steph Curry makes highlights with his deep shots and being the best shooter of all time. If you can't see the beauty and the dichotomy of what Golden State does and what James Harden does, and then look over to Milwaukee and what Giannis does for that team, look at Denver. These teams play in such contrasting styles. It is almost like if you're watching, an MMA fight or a boxing fight, the old adage, styles make fights. These guys have such different styles. It is so fascinating to see them counter one another after game and see how they adjust, see how they do things differently. After, James Harden has an off game, do they maybe tighten up on Eric Gordon? Do they cut off the alley-oop to Clint Capella even more? It's fascinating. It's chess basketball, and it is something that any true basketball fan with a nice glass of something expensive would enjoy. And I hope you're enjoying it just as much as I am, because these final 3 games, if there are 3 games, at least 2 games are going to be really, really extremely fun. And if you can't get up for those, then I'm not sure you have a pulse. We talked about James Harden and his averages for the series, almost 36 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 42% from the field, 35.5% from 3. Steph Curry in his 4 games, 21.3 points, 5.5 dimes, shooting 39% from the field, 26% from 3. And Klay Thompson, someone put a Klay Thompson picture on a milk carton. 15.5 points, 6 boards, 2.3 steals, 38% from the field, and 31% from 3. You look at Golden State now, and they look so good, especially after game 2, that you thought, well, Kevin Durant, with all the rumors going on about him possibly going to New York, will they be great still with Kevin Durant leaving? If he does indeed leave, they still got Steph Curry, who probably a top 3, definitely top 5 NBA player in the league still, with his ability to shoot from 35. Klay Thompson, still one of the best two-way players and also an all-time great shooter. Draymond Green still can get up when the moment's right, and he's always revving up, but he may not shoot very well, and he may not have less than 5 turnovers in a game. But I think we are past the point where those 3 guys are able to be a big 3 that can carry a team to 60-plus wins. Kevin Durant, I think this year more than ever, has been the anchor for Golden State, and you can see it in these playoff games. I mean, he is the guy who's getting all the shots in the crunch time. There were 2 shots at the end of this past game. First shot went to Kevin Durant, rebound by probably Andre Iguodala. Back out to Steph. Steph took the long 3. He missed it. But it seems like all these shots in crunch time for the Warriors are going to Kevin Durant. And game, it was either game 2 or game 3. Kevin Durant was almost doing some ISO plays that were so un-Warrior-like. I was almost wondering if he was going rogue, because he would just go down the court and just shoot. He wouldn't pass. He wouldn't try to have any motion sets. He wouldn't try to bring his teammates into it. And maybe that's what they need. With the fact that DeMarcus Cousins, injuring his hamstring, I believe in their first game. Poor Boogie. I'm one of the biggest Boogie fans on the planet, being that I am a Sacramento Kings fan. And it was very sad to see him go down, but he was going to be a big part of their team, especially on offense. Although if he was in this series, I'm not sure he would be a plus or a minus for the Warriors, because the way he plays defense, especially coming off that Achilles tear, he'd probably be made mincemeat of by James Harden and company. James Harden is just playing at another level. And sorry if you have to, fan yourself off with all this James Harden talk and on the gushing I am about it, but his play is just out of this world. And I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see what happened in Games 5. It's gonna be so awesome. Houston tying it up at 2 games apiece, 112-108 tonight. The earlier game tonight, Milwaukee and Boston. Milwaukee beat the Celtics 113-101 in Boston. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 39 points, 16 boards, 4 dimes, shot 15 of 22 from the field. He has played out of his mind the last couple of games, and not thanks to the free throw stripe, even though that seems to be what Kyrie Irving and company were really, really hoping to put their bets on. That was the real reason why they were doing so well. You know what? Let's take a break. Let's try to get Bobby in here, because I believe he is just seconds away from joining us. We will talk Milwaukee and Boston when we come back. We will talk Toronto, Philadelphia. We'll talk Denver, Portland. We'll continue this NBA talk here on the revived version of the SLO Late Show. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby, we think, is coming. Thank you for joining us. We'll be right back.
I was up late night balling, counting up hundreds by the thousand.
You're listening to the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket.
I was up late night balling, so far from my past misfortune. No sleeping, late nights, no eating, gun squeezing. I'm a real artesian, Ramona. I was round that counter, still down. I'm a North soldier.
Every piece of advice when your kids become parents, whether they listen to you or not. Pennies put aside for future degrees. Little fingers saved from hot cookie trays. Every passed down tradition and heirloom. Every policy to watch over them when you're not there.
Every way we look out for those we love is an act of mutuality. We can help with the financial ones. Learn more or find an advisor at massmutual.com.
Ever wonder what ingredients are in Bud Light? Just check the packaging. We brew with hops, barley, water, and rice. Ever wonder what ingredients are in Coors Light? You can't check the packaging. You have to go to their website, download a PDF, and scroll to page 3. There it is. Coors Light brews with hop extract, barley, water, and corn syrup.
All right, Bobby, we are live on
brewed with no
the
corn syrup.
YouTube stream.
Responsibly, Bud Light Beer, AB, St.
Louis. We are currently on commercial break on 1280. Bobby, nice to see you. Can you hear everything?
4-3. Yeah, I can hear just fine.
R-I-B-S. Attention, food lovers. Coast. This is Brian from the Rib Line. Let me tell you my world. My beautiful wife, Crystal, and my 3 children. This place I call home on the Central Coast, and a passion for good food. Ribline has been barbecuing our tri-tip, ribs, and chicken for over 25 years. Tender and juicy.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We start with top quality meats and only use homemade dry rubs and barbecue sauces. We don't take any shortcuts when it comes to our Santa Maria style barbecue or anything else we do. Our attention to detail and the quality of our product shows in all our food, down to the last brush of barbecue sauce. Come into Ribline today for delicious homemade Santa Maria style barbecue and so much more. From grill and chill to wine and dine, it's always Ribline time. Ribline.
543 RIBS.
Milestone Tavern at Foothill in Santa Rosa with 72 beers on tap and happy hour Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 and nightly from 10 to 11 with great food and drink specials. Baseball is back. Milestone carries the MLB Extra Innings package, all Dodger games, and streams all Cal Poly Mustang baseball games. For all the great local charities, Milestone gives back as well. Contact them and ask how they can help with their community partnership program. Why not use all this great food and beer to raise money for great local causes? Always with plenty of free parking. Come into Milestone Tavern today.
Now, back to the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket.
All right, welcome back to the SLO Late Show here on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket, 101.7 FM. We did find Bobby roaming the streets. We brought him inside. He was scared. He was lonely, and he is now here with us. Bobby the Goodsby, you're back. How are you doing, my friend?
Alex the Upper Clipper, we're back. We're back on air. Sorry, everybody. I'm a little late to the show, but very happy to be here. Glad to be streaming on YouTube and back on the radio waves of 1280 ESPN. It's been a minute.
Oh my God, it has been. I don't know how many days exactly it's been. I'm sure I have a carving at home on the wall that has the days knocked off. But I don't remember off the top of my head. But Bobby, this is gonna be it. This is when we're on the air for good. We're just gonna ramp up from here. We're on YouTube. We're on TuneIn. I'm watching myself on another version of our YouTube show. I'm looking at you on 3 different screens. Bobby, it is high tech up in here.
I mean, I'm as pretty as it gets on the radio, so I'm glad we can put this on video streams as well. But yeah, no, I mean, we're doing it. For those of you that aren't aware, we had this show a couple times before. We went on hiatus because things in our personal lives just didn't ramp up to allow us to come on the radio. But we're back and we're doing it big. We're streaming. We're gonna do everything we can to get the name out there. So if you like what you hear, we love all your feedback on social media. And yeah, just happy to be back.
Yes. Thank you for shouting out our social medias, Bobby. At Alex Klepper on Twitter, at Goodsby Bobby on Twitter. I didn't know that you were tweeting up a storm until recently, Bobby. And also, Bobby, our man here, is a Big Brother All-Star. He Explain what you do with Big Brother.
Yeah, so for those of you that know me or don't know me, I am a very big Big Brother and Survivor fan. I know, reality TV, but don't hate. I'm actually one of the live feed correspondent guests that they have on Rob Has the Podcast. Rob Has the Podcast, very, very good podcast if you're looking for a good listen, especially if you're into reality TV. They also do Game of Thrones updates. They do all kinds of different shows, and they gave me the opportunity to come on, and their platform is massive. They have one of the biggest reach in all of podcasting. They've won awards for best podcast out on the radio waves. They actually beat Serial for the #1 podcast a couple years ago. So
still behind us, but
a little behind us. But they gave me an opportunity, so I've been coming on, and they have thousands of fans. So let's hope some of them come over and check us out.
Yes, for sure. So we're gonna be talking sports, Bobby. I pretty much soliloquied in the first segment about James Harden and the game number 4 that just ended about half an hour ago between Houston and Golden State. Houston tying that series up at 2 games apiece. Houston winning 112-108. James Harden, 38 points, 10 boards, 4 assists. Really did it all for Houston. I just talked about how excited I am for the next 3 games because we could see a series as good as what we saw last year. And hopefully Chris Paul doesn't get hurt this time. And hopefully everyone's firing at all cylinders and we get a game 7 out of this.
I'll be honest with you. This game tonight really brought back my desire because we've seen the Warriors just trample everybody. Honestly, yes, the Clippers took them a couple games deep in the previous series, but we all knew that wasn't going to be the case. We all knew that it was going to end up being the Warriors series. But now to watch Houston after going down 0-2, make a comeback, start to play better. Granted, they have been at home, so we'll see how they can do on the road. But watching them, it feels like they have a new desire. Like they're ramping up all of their passion into playing in this series again. And we might actually have a series. I mean, they won, and they won convincingly tonight. They honestly just trampled all over the Warriors. And the Warriors, I'm starting to think maybe Warriors fans should be a little worried. I mean, they just haven't been playing that great.
Yeah, no, and I talked a little bit about the future if Kevin Durant does indeed leave for New York, if the big 3 of Steph, Clay, and Draymond can still be a big 3 that can carry you to 60+ wins and a title. And I don't think they can. And really, you've seen Kevin Durant in the 4 games of this series just be so dominant and really be their #1 guy. When the last couple of years, it's been him and Steph kind of taking turns. He's averaging 36 points per game, and then Steph is averaging 21, and Clay's averaging 15.5. So I do think that they're in trouble in this series just because James Harden is playing so out of his mind, and Eric Gordon is playing out of his mind as well. Chris Paul is barely giving them anything with what he's been able to do in the past, and they still have this series tied. So excited to see where this one goes. But we've talked enough about Golden State, Houston, at least for the time being. The earlier game tonight, Milwaukee beat Boston 113-101 in Boston. Now, I did not hear this, but I saw on Twitter that the Boston crowd was actually booing. They were booing the Celtics players off of the court. Giannis, 39 points, 16 boards on only 22 shots. Kyrie Irving, where have you gone? Only shooting 37% for the series. Shot 7 for 22 this game. After game 3, shot 8 for 22 and said that will not happen again. So, hey, he was right. He went one worse. Your thoughts right now on Boston being 1 game away from being beaten by Milwaukee. Obviously, Milwaukee, they were the #1 seed in the East, the best record in the NBA, so it's not exactly shocking. But with the way that Boston beat up Indiana in the first round, the way they won that first game, they had Paul Pierce, Celtics alum, stating that there was going to be a sweep and maybe a gentleman's sweep at most for the Celtics. And now I would be shocked if they won game 5, and I would be shocked if Kyrie Irving was a Celtic next year.
Yeah, no, honestly, watching this series, I am absolutely amazed. I thought it was for sure going to game 7. I thought it was going to be back and forth, and everything we've seen has been all one-sided Milwaukee. And I'll even be brave enough to say I think Milwaukee's the best team in the whole NBA. I think they are deep. I think they have players that are playing at the highest level right now. Look what Giannis can do on a daily input. Like, watching him is like watching someone in their prime take over and completely dominate for one team. And watching him, I play DraftKings, as you know.
we already talked about that on the show. We have a story that you need to tell, but go on.
Okay, so watching him on DraftKings over the last, I'd say, 2 weeks, if you didn't have Giannis in your starting lineup, you didn't win. He was always in the winning lineup. So that just shows how dominant one player can be for one team. And watching him against Boston, watching that whole team, I don't see how Boston gets back in this. I think they're done, and I am absolutely shocked because Boston, as we know, is a very deep team. They have a lot of good players, and no one is playing or doing anything against Milwaukee to show that they're even going to be in it in this series. So watching Milwaukee, I'm going to say that they might be the front runners to win it all, even over the Warriors.
Yeah, I don't know if I 100% agree, but I would say it's, if you split it 3 ways between Milwaukee, Golden State, and Houston, I think I would probably take that. I think all 3 of those teams have their obvious pluses and some minuses. But the way that Giannis is playing is just, I mean, he is obviously taking a leap this entire season, having one of the best seasons that anyone's had in the past 20 years. And the fact that James Harden has had such a phenomenal year himself made it so he is not a runaway MVP. His stats in the regular season, 27.7 points per game, good for 3rd in the NBA, 12.5 rebounds, good for 6, averaging 6 assists per game. And in this series, averaging 30.5 points, 11.5 boards, 4.5 dimes, 3 stocks, 52.5% from the field, almost 50% from 3, which is really his thing that he needs to work on. If he can start hitting threes at a 40% clip, I mean, look out, league, because he's going to be the best guy in the league for the next 10 years. And to the chagrin of Kyrie Irving and company, is shooting 15 free throws a game. I want to talk a little bit about Kyrie because he had some quotes afterwards that if you're not already troubled enough, if you're a Boston fan, it is troubling because according to Jeff Goodman of Stadium.com, used to be of ESPN and I think CBS Sports before that, Kyrie Irving was asked whether he has ever had a 3-game stretch in the playoffs really this poorly. He shot 19 of 62. Kyrie's response, who cares? And then Kyrie saying about his performance, saying, I'm trying to do it all. 22 shots. I should have shot 30. Now, this is the guy that Boston brought in, and everyone lauded Boston for bringing in Kyrie Irving because they traded Isaiah Thomas and pieces for a guy who was seen as a savant offensively. And you could still say he is. He is one of the best offensive players in the league. Can be hit or miss defensively, but there's a lot of guys in the league who could say that about. But I think to be a real number one guy in the NBA, you have to not only have, obviously, the skills, but you need to have the maturity. You need to have the emotional support of your teammates. You need to have your teammates back. You need to have a leadership ability that just is not there for Kyrie. And I think when he left LeBron, he thought that winning was just going to come easy. And pretty much it has, at least in the regular season. He didn't play at all in the playoffs when last year. And for him to now face adversity and to react this way, where he almost puts the blame on his teammates and doesn't own up to the fact that he's shooting under 40% from this series and he's supposed to be their number one guy, I see him as what he was in Cleveland, what a glorified Robin, a guy who can be your scorer. He can be your leading scorer in a series. He can be your leading scorer for an entire season, but he's not going to be your actual leader. There's a difference between a leading scorer and a leader. And I think Kyrie is never going to be that guy because maybe once it clicks into place in his head, he's going to be 35, 36, and he won't have the same ability to get by guys that he can now. And he's going to rely on, his shooting more. I see this as almost Boston. Look, let's say goodbye to the season. Let's focus on Jason Tatum. Let's focus on Jaylen Brown. Let's try to get, some other pieces, maybe trade a couple of our other pieces for another guy who might be able to fit in better. Hopefully Gordon Hayward can continue his upward trend that he showed in the second half of the season, and let Kyrie go to New York because he's not worth it. Do you agree with the fact that Kyrie may be hurting the Celtics more than he's helping right now?
Honestly, I completely agree with you. I think that the Celtics have a lot of really good young pieces in place that have enough potential to be able to mold into something. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Kyrie is a very, very good player. And I think he, at times, can play at such a high level that he is arguably one of the top 5, top 6 players in the league. But that's only on occasion. He has this weird ability to turn it off or just don't go up to your peak level because 1, you're frustrated, or 2, you're mad that you're behind, or you're not feeling like playing today. I just feel like he has that kind of mentality, and you don't see those in the top players like Durant or LeBron James. They don't have that ability to just kind of turn off whenever they're not feeling it. And I feel like he does that. And I completely agree with you that the Celtics have enough good pieces in place that they could let him go and try to build around their core young players like Tatum. And I feel like there's a lot more potential with this team and not with the distraction that is Kyrie Irving. I think he brings a lot to the table at times, but is the juice worth the squeeze? And I feel like he'll get you, right? He'll get you to the playoffs. He'll get you even to the Eastern Conference Finals. But is Kyrie going to win you a championship? I don't know if I believe that. So I think he's better for a team like the Knicks than he is for Boston.
Now, say that both Kyrie and Kevin Durant find their way to New York and they get a top 3 pick. And let's say they pick, they get Zion or they get Ja Morant. Yeah. Is that going to be a championship worthy team with Kevin Durant, who could be the number 1 guy? He's been the finals MVP 2 years in a row. And with Kyrie, maybe now in the number 2 spot. Do you think those really volatile personalities can coexist on a single team and share the ball enough and not have, any locker room issues?
I mean, I feel like it's too early to tell. It really is. But I do agree that there could be those issues, especially with Kyrie and, Durant, not normally the most, confrontational, but he does at times bring confrontation. I mean, we saw what happened with him in Westbrook. We saw what happens sometimes with him and other Warriors players on the court. We've seen them get frustrated at each other. So with Kyrie, I could totally see that be like oil and water. But I think, and I'm not going to say that they're championship level. I mean, we're still talking about the Knicks here. So let's not jump to conclusions. But if they were to get a Zion,
those guys, yeah.
Right? Or Ja Morant, and get Kyrie and Durant, I honestly think they could be contenders. I mean, who in the East is going to have as stacked of a roster as that?
Giannis, the Milwaukee Giannis's, maybe.
Let's start with this. So if you would take Giannis, Middleton, and let's see, Bledsoe, versus Kyrie, Durant, Zion.
Okay. Well, if you had Zion in there, yeah. I mean, you got to take.
There's a chance it could get Zion.
There's a good chance. I mean, I think they had the worst record in the league, so they have the best chance of tied with Phoenix and what?
Well, if you believe the NBA lottery is not set up, yes, I could see that.
Right. So yes, that's true. David Stern somewhere. He's calling and he's texting Adam Silver like, "Hey, all right, this is how I did it." Adam Silver's like, "No, I don't want to fix it. I want to see who comes out with it."
Yeah.
No. Okay. Here's how to freeze the envelope perfectly. Oh, I guess the ping pong balls now. Here's how to make the ping pong ball bounce right into your hand. Okay. First, take olive oil. All right. And then 5 minutes later, got it. And then Adam's like, "David, please, we're on a live stream. I can't do this." Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens this summer with the New York Knicks. Obviously, our our good friend, Evil Esteban, who we always have to mention because his evil is still in our hearts. Our old producer, Esteban Ramos, big New York Knicks fan. And he's hoping for that exact situation. He's hoping for Kyrie and KD to join forces along with Zion. But hey, with all those personalities, who knows? Zion may become like he may be like Thor or not Thor. Oh my God, why can't I think of? Oh my God, I'm getting way too old. Thanos. I'm thinking of Thanos.
Thanos. Yeah.
Speaking of the Avengers, Bobby, did you see the movie yet?
I have. No spoilers to those who would tune out if we said anything, but I have, and that was all right. I feel like I'm the only person in America that's just like, it's all right.
Okay, I will give you this. I liked Infinity War better.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was just more of like a like when can we spoil Infinity War now? Like, is it far enough? Like, people have had their chance.
Yeah,
like,
well, Infinity War, but not Endgame.
Yeah, when Peter is in Robert Downey Jr.'s arms, it's like, I don't feel so good. It's like, oh, jeez.
Yeah,
I gotta walk away.
I did love the ending to that one, but this one, it was okay.
Okay,
I was never the biggest fan.
I also thought Thanos in Infinity War was just so much more like menacing. He just, whenever you saw him on screen, you're like, oh crap, something bad's gonna happen. Like when Thanos popped onto Earth, you're like, oh, pun intended, oh snap.
Yeah, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought, I get what you did there. Oh snap! It took me a second. Sorry, I'm trying to tweet at the same time.
Ooh, okay.
No, it's honestly, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it wasn't anything. But I've never been the biggest Avengers fan. I don't know why, but I prefer more of like the Batman.
DC, the DC.
No. Don't put me in that category. I am not like a Justice League fan, but I was more of a the Joker one with Heath Ledger, like that type of superhero movie,
like dark and brooding,
like dark and like suspenseful and thriller, and you're not sure what's going to happen. Not we're going to go kill everyone and see what happens and save the day, and yeah.
You like guys? You talk like this. That's what it is.
What the hell is going on?
That is the voice of Batman when he's Batman in The Dark Knight. That's my one gripe about The Dark Knight is that whenever Batman is talking, it just sounds like he's got a really, really bad flu. And
that was like if Batman like sucked on some helium. That's what your voice sounded like.
Sorry, I don't have
Okay, now you're getting me off my game.
Oh yeah, that's I'm the one getting for your game. That didn't start off.
I blame you entirely, and I don't understand why you're doing this to me. All right, a little bit of a aside, but hey, we like to talk some movies here, and
it's our show. We can do what we want.
That's right. That's what the millions come for, Bobby. For us to do what we want. Do we want to talk Game of Thrones really quick? I have not seen it. I've seen like 3 or 4 episodes, and I'm sure there's going to be some spoilers for that. Let's just say, did you watch it? Did you like it? How is it going?
Absolutely. Okay, everything to this point, I absolutely love. Everything about this show is just everything I've ever wanted. I just can't wait for the big battle to happen that we're all waiting for.
Wait, I thought we already had the big battle.
We had one big battle, but we haven't had the biggest battle. What everyone thought the last battle was going to be the big battle. The next battle is the big one. So
is that coming the last episode or?
Well, I think there's 2 or maybe 3 episodes left. Next week should be the big episode, and then I think it's going to do a little bit of like coming down from the big battle high to end the series.
Okay. All right. Well, that's our Game of Thrones and Avengers and what else did we talk about? The Dark Knight minute. When we come back, let's take a break, Bobby. When we come back, you know what? Let's talk a little bit of NFL because there was a feel good moment. Let's end the hour on a feel good moment, Bobby, because we need it after that that Batman impression by yours truly, and trying to tiptoe around some spoilers for a couple of big entertainment events. When we come back, we will talk about Ryan Shazier dancing at his wedding. This is the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio 1280, 101.7. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby.
You're listening to the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Scared of living my old ways. Stuck on this one-way train road.
Can you hear the music and
stuff? If you're checking on, so are we. Stop by your locally owned Central Coast Jiffy Lubes today for a signature service oil change, and they promise to have you in and out in a jiffy. Remember, from tire rotations to tires, brakes, and beyond, your locally owned Central Coast Jiffy Lubes do more than just oil changes.
Attention light beer drinkers. A message from Bud Light. You've gone far too long without knowing what ingredients are in your beer. And that's a shame, because beer's pretty great, especially when it's made with great stuff. And Bud Light is made with the best stuff around, which is why Bud Light is putting an ingredients label on our packaging, because it's the right thing to do. And because you deserve to know your beer's ingredients. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB, St. Louis, Missouri.
When the leading antihistamine and Nasacort go nose to nose, Nasacort wins, stopping more of the chemical responses that can cause your nasal allergy symptoms. And when you stop more causes, you get 24-hour relief from sneezing, an itchy runny nose, even congestion. It's prescription strength medicine available over the counter. Nasacort Allergy 24-hour. Stops more of what makes you miserable. Use as directed.
When you're looking for a new take on Santa Maria style barbecue, it's right here at the Rib Line. We have a fun, modern take on traditional barbecue that I know you'll love. We serve the absolute best ribs on the Central Coast that has gone undefeated in local rib cook-offs. Everyone loves our smashing tri-tip sandwiches. Plus, let's not forget the world food champion, the triple threat tri-tip chili. Come in and enjoy a beer, dine in with the family, or just hang out and watch the game. We're open in 3 locations and catering is available. From grill and chill to wine and dine, it's always Ribline time.
You know that light on your dashboard? That's the check engine light you've been ignoring. How about we pull into that Jiffy Lube over there and take care of this? They promise to have you in and out in a jiffy. If your light is on, so are we. Save time and money by stopping into your locally owned Central Coast Jiffy Lube today.
For those of you looking, I'll keep the live stream going. Can they hear us on the radio, Alex?
Now, back to the SLO Late Show.
Hope not.
ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
Welcome back to the SLO Late Show. ESPN Radio 1280, 101.7 in the North County. Bobby, I just had a workplace injury.
Oh, boy. What did you do now?
I think literally just off camera from our live stream, YouTube. If you want to watch the live stream, which, I mean, why wouldn't you? Go to youtube.com.
What everyone's doing.
It's literally half of the United States looking at our viewing numbers. Half the United States is watching. Thank you for all those, especially on the East Coast. It's quite late. youtube.com, search the SLO Late Show. You'll see the live stream on there. I was walking to use the little boys' room, and there is a mic rod sticking out.
Oh, did it get you?
I literally turned and my eye, it literally hit right in my eye and it popped my contact out. And
man,
I had to have a moment.
I thought you were just crying because the Kings have no chance of getting Zion. I thought that's what that was.
Okay, well, we had to trade away Nick Stauskas, and just by getting out of his contract, I would rather have that than have Zion.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. That's not a stretch at all.
We don't stretch here, Bobby. This is the SLO Late Show. We tell it how it is, 100% all the time. So workplace injury, workers' comp claim coming. All right, Ryan Shazier, Bobby, did you see this video? He got married over the weekend. Ryan Shazier, I guess you could. current linebacker, former linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers, got married this weekend. There was a point in time when, after he got injured, he had a spinal injury where doctors thought he was never going to walk again. And then he slowly made his way back to walking. And this weekend at his wedding, not only was he walking, not only did he walk down the aisle, he was dancing. He was dancing at his wedding, having a good old time. Really the feel-good story of the week.
Yeah.
Just really, really great to see.
It was so touching. I got to watch that this morning when I was watching NFL Live, and just seeing him progress as fast as he has is absolutely amazing. I mean, this guy, they told him there might be a chance you might be paralyzed from the neck down. You might not have any movement in the rest of your life in your body. And all we've seen him do is say, I'm coming back. I'm coming back. And every single time I see a video of him online or on ESPN, he's getting better and better and better. And to watch him dance at his own wedding with his bride, honestly, if you don't get a little tear in your eye, then you're not human, because that is absolutely miraculous and just shows what advances we have in health and medicine nowadays. For him to have an injury like that, can't even move, to dancing in his wedding. And we probably won't ever see this guy play again, even though he says he's going to make a comeback. We probably will never see him play again, but everything the Steelers have done for him and everything he's accomplished and used this tragedy to be a benefit for other people and for community. Honestly, this guy should get Player of the Year for the Walter Payton Man of the Year. I think he's been absolutely touching to watch.
Yeah, it's been a phenomenal story. I guess the only one thing that I have to say that is anywhere negative is whenever I read a story about him and his recovery, and I know he says he wants to come back, but can we not put in the story about how he's trying to make his way back and how he I don't know. It just kind of it leaves a weird taste in my mouth when everything is put into the perspective of him playing. And I just want to see him live a happy life with his new wife and be able to walk. And I feel it would feel strange to me to see him go on the field again after what we've seen him go through very publicly. It just seems like with each new story, there's more and more of an emphasis on, well, he's going to he wants to play again and he really wants to play. It obviously shows his character. He's an amazing person, and he's bounced back from something he never thought he was going to have to deal with incredible grace and humility. And he's been a great spokesperson, not only for the Steelers, but for the NFL. But it seems like every story that I read, it's kind of put in the mold of the rise from adversity story, which obviously it is, but it's not a rise from adversity story that's anything outside of football. It's a result of the sport that he played, and it's not really a freak incident. It's like an extra strong manifestation of the actual sport he plays. It's like when a tragic fatal crash happens in auto racing, or when Anderson Silva breaks his leg in half in the cage. Those things are terrible results of playing that sport or fighting that in the sport that you love, but you can't say it's exactly like a freak accident. And I don't want to see him go through another injury again. Maybe that's selfish of me, and maybe it's just almost kind of squeamish thinking that he could go back on there, but I don't know. It seems too soon, too much, even though it's been a year and a half, for them to continually push the playing storyline.
Well, and let's be honest. And it's nothing against him, because everything he's doing, it's admirable what he's doing, but he's never going to play again. There's a couple reasons why. One, why would he put himself at risk to get injured after everything he's gone through? He takes one hit the wrong way. He could re-aggravate something. He could be fully paralyzed for the rest of his life. No doctor is going to clear him to allow him to play again after what he's gone through. 2, that's 3. Let's say he does.
Here on the SLO Late Show.
Let's say he does play again, or is able to play again, and the doctor clears him. no team is going to take him because the guy has not been able to walk nor be able to, do things at a productive level. So there's no way a team's going to think that he's in football shape to help their team. And that's not a knock on him. I'm sure he still works out and does a lot more than I do. But what I'm saying is there's no way anyone's going to put him in that position to try to play at a high level, and nor is he going to be possibly able to play at a high level. Now, if that's all said and done, and I'm 100% wrong, then I will say it's one of the best comebacks, probably the best comeback in sports history. I just don't think it's possible. And it's not a knock on him.
And maybe what happens is he continues to improve and he's able to move all his extremities and really a mostly normal function. And he can even run, and maybe he's medically cleared to play, but he's just kind of a captain on the sidelines, and he's maybe he's even on the roster. Maybe he's like on the injured list or something. He's on the 53 and he's on the sidelines and he's helping his guys, and he's drawing out plays and he's helping them say, oh, look, this wide receiver over here, if you just do this, you'll cover him better. That kind of stuff. Almost like a coach on the sidelines, but not a coach, because I think there is some moral value, some value in having a teammate that has gone through that, and not just having them be a coach. Being a guy who's suited up, if you will. I just don't want to see him go on the field and play, because, like you said, he's gone through all this. He's gotten his life back from something where he thought he might be completely paralyzed, and to see him take that risk every single time he goes out there to get hit, I don't think it'd be worth it. I mean, I think he can have a job for life with the Steelers, doing whatever he wants, and he should just stay with that and continue to be a goodwill ambassador for the NFL.
The Steelers should honestly bring him back in some capacity. I even think a coaching thing would not even be that bad, but I do agree with you. It'd probably mean more if he was some kind of player coach or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we're spending a lot of time on Ryan Shays here, but it is such a touching, amazing story. And I honestly just hope the best for him. And I hope he can win a Super Bowl in one way or the other, but be a part of a team to do that.
Yeah.
Might not be on the field.
Yeah. We got a minute until the hard out at the top of the hour here, Bobby. Let's just give your soliloquy on the Vikings, because you are an enormous Vikings fan.
Yes. I like how you put, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you predicted 16-0 once again.
Yeah, 16-0. No, I love how you put it in the 1 minute mark, so I have literally only a minute to talk about it. Well, Kirk is going to get us a championship this year. No, I'll be honest. I am not that crazy, but I do hope for good things. I think their offensive line is garbage, and they've made some moves to make it better. So we'll see. But we're still a bit away from football, but it is nice to see the draft and see they finally address the offensive line.
Yeah. If we have some time later in the show, we still got some NBA series to talk about, maybe a little bit of NHL and some fighting for sure. MMA. A big weekend for Donald Cerrone and a big weekend coming up. We might talk a little bit of fantasy just to see what Bobby thinks about the rookies that were drafted. What was it, 2 weekends ago? No, 3 weekends ago? I have no idea. It's all blur. But we'll talk about that if we have some time. But for now, we got to go to a break because we're 1 hour through, Bobby.
1 hour through.
1 hour back. It's nice. It's nice to be back. ESPN Radio 1280, 101.7, YouTube, TuneIn, everything. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby.
We're back, y'all.
All right. Don't know why the log was set up the way it was. We went to Sports Center all night. I thought it was going to be Sports Center. But we're going to be back in 20 seconds. Bobby just had a refreshment.
Mm-hmm. Had a twitch.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hold for signal.
It's that time, Central Coast. Time for the SLO Late Show. Now, your hosts, Alex Klupper and Bobby Goodsby.
Okay, welcome back. Hour number 2 of the SLO Late Show. Have to get a couple things worked out in the log there. Don't know why we went to Sports Center all night for a couple minutes, but hey, we're back.
We're back. We did it.
Hour number 2. We're getting things done here on the SLO Late Show. The return, the rebirth, the revival, the reinvigoration, you could say. Bobby, we talked a lot about James Harden. We talked a lot about Ryan Shazier in that first hour. 2 guys that are always on our minds, Bobby. But now, do you want to talk the other 2 series in the NBA? Or want to talk some MMA, Bobby?
Let's talk the other 2 series. We've been talking about basketball. Let's stay on basketball.
All right, let's stay on basketball, and then we'll get to MMA because we like to talk MMA every show here on the SLO Late Show. It is our thing, one of our things. We want to talk MMA, NBA, NFL, every single show. So you'll always get those 3 things from us here on the SLO Late Show. NBA, we had a couple of games yesterday, game 4s, and both series got tied up. Toronto, Philadelphia tied at 2 apiece. Denver, Portland tied at 2 apiece. Bobby, I just want to go back a couple of days before we go to what happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The game 3 between Denver and Portland, 4 overtimes. I don't know. It's hard to put into context just because there's so many games that happen every year, and I'm sure there are other phenomenal games, but for it to be the only second ever 4 OT game in playoff history, the first in like 60 years, I would have a hard time finding another game that had that much drama, that much just going all around. CJ McCollum played phenomenally. Nikola Jokic played 65 minutes, and he is not exactly a guy known for his extreme stamina. I mean, I just want to applaud on air on that game because it was phenomenal. And it was the peak of what I think basketball can be. It was just you kind of made fun of yourself for liking all the reality TV shows, but everyone says, sports is the ultimate reality TV. Maybe that's why you like both things so much.
Probably.
And that was the pinnacle of that, just because you wondered, okay, is Nikola Jokic, is he going to get a breather at all in the third overtime or the fourth overtime? He's played, pretty much every minute of the second half, and now 4 overtime periods. Is someone going to just collapse in the court? Is it going to be Nikola Jokic? Is he going to need an EMT to help him with chest compressions on the sideline? Damian Lillard didn't play great, but is he going to be able to hit a last second shot like he has shown in a couple of playoff series enders in the past, once this postseason? Just a fascinating game overall, and one I can say I was lucky to watch in its entirety.
And let's be honest, that could have easily gone 5. Like, it probably should have gone to the 5th overtime. Absolutely amazing game to watch. I was actually at work, and we had nobody there for the game. Really not for the game, during the whole portion of the actual game. Then as soon as it got to overtime and double overtime and triple overtime, we started getting more and more people around the bar. It didn't matter who you were. This game drew you in because it was such a back and forth battle that one team would get a tiny lead, and all of a sudden the other team would come back, and then we go to another overtime. Like, the drama of it was absolutely fantastic, and seeing these guys just drenching in sweat, just absolutely tired, completely putting their bodies on the line every single time. It was awesome to watch. And honestly, I don't know how they came back and played the next game. You could see that Portland was a little bit worn down after the next game after that night. But yeah, no, it was absolutely one of the best playoff games I've ever seen. And I was hoping it'd go more.
I know.
Frank, get my DraftKings score back up. I got 20th place. I could have got first.
Bobby, everything is in context of DraftKings now, which
99%.
Yes.
99% of what I think about sports, it's all about DraftKings.
I'm so proud of you for that, Bobby. Well, maybe in a few minutes we'll talk about your greatest win and what you bought with it.
Could have been greater.
Because it could have been greater, but definitely the item you bought with it could definitely have been greater. But the two games that come to mind for me when thinking about that 4 overtime game, one is a basketball game that is not in the playoffs, and it's partially just because of the setting. The other game, which I guess I'll go to first, was the 18 inning game between Boston and Los Angeles, the Dodgers and the Red Sox in the World Series last year. That one I watched with our good friend Chris, the voice of the Mustang Sylvester, in Flagstaff with a couple of Cal Poly assistant coaches nearby. Watched that in its entirety. That was a fun night. But also the basketball one, I was with you in Las Vegas for your 26th birthday or something.
Something like that.
When we watched, it was Golden State and in Oklahoma City. That was the game that I think went to double overtime, and Steph hit like a 40-footer to win the game.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just because we're in Vegas, we're watching the sports book, but that game always has been one of the top NBA games that I remember in my mind. Happily, even though I believe I lost my $5 bet because of Steph. So.
I remember that. We were at MGM Grand. He just shot a half-court shot.
Yeah, with like 10 seconds left too. It wasn't even like at the buzzer. So.
Like there was it wasn't necessary to shoot it then, but he did.
Please, Steph. All right, so game 4 of this series, Denver, like you said, were able to pull it out 116-112 in Portland to tie that series at 2 games apiece. Nikola Jokic had a little bit of a lesser game, I guess, even though he did have 21 points, 12 boards, and 11 assists. I believe it is his 4th triple-double of his very first playoffs. This guy is out of his mind. Played 39 minutes, 8 of 15 from the floor, and made his only 3-pointer. But the guy who was the star of the game for Denver was Jamal Murray, their point guard. 34 points, 5 boards, 4 assists, 10 of 20 from the field, a perfect 11 for 11 from the line. And that you sealed the game with the free throw line. You had 2 of the best free throw shooters, really 3 of the best free throw shooters in the league, and Jamal Murray for the Nuggets, and both of the guards for Portland, and Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And Damian Lillard missed a couple of big free throws down the stretch that would have at least made it a 1-possession game late or tied it within the last minute or two. And Jamal Murray, for a guy who has been seemingly so hot and cold, really his entire career. Now, granted, he's only 22 years old. It's only his 3rd year in the league. I believe 3rd year, maybe 4th year. But he's still extremely young, and it seems like there's games where he is just on fire, and there are games where he just can't buy a bucket. And for him to come in coolly and make 4 straight free throws down the stretch when he had all that pressure on him, they're in the opposing team's arena, in one of the loudest arenas in basketball, in what used to be known as the Rose Garden. I forget what it's called now. Let's just call it the Rose Garden. But the fact that he was able to do that was extremely impressive to me, because this is a guy who was, had high hopes coming out of college. He was picked number 7 by Denver in the 2016 draft out of Kentucky. But I don't know if anyone really thought he was going to be even a number 2 guy. Maybe he could be a good starter in the NBA. He could be, he didn't play point guard at Kentucky. He played 2 guard, I believe, with Mr. De'Aaron Fox.
Yep.
And people wondered about his playmaking ability. He showed flashes while a Wildcat, but he wasn't a guy that you knew was going to be, a Chris Paul type of a point guard who can create plays for others. And he's still not exactly that, but he is a great overall player. And if he can continue to build upon the consistency he's shown in his last couple of games for this series against Portland in their 4 games, averaging 26.5 points, not shooting particularly well from 3. I guess actually he is. He's shooting 38%, shooting 45% from the field, and 100% from the line. He is impressing me. If he can continue this growth of his game, then I think Nikola Jokic will have an excellent running mate for the next 10 years that they stay together. The storyline has kind of always been, at least this year, that Nikola Jokic is their offense and a lot of the other guys are expendable. And I think with the way that Jamal Murray has shown himself to be almost one-upping Damian Lillard in this series so far, he's showing that the future is very bright, not only just Nikola Jokic-wise, but throughout that Denver roster.
So, yeah, no, I completely agree with you. If you look at Jamal Murray's points and just his whole entire stats for the last 2 games of the series, 34 points in both games, 5 rebounds, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 assists, and 1 steal out of the 2 games. That's phenomenal. He's as red hot as James Harden's eyeball right now. So I absolutely think this kid is really coming into form in this series. I don't know if he gets a groove against certain teams or what, because we saw him in the last series, not play to his best. Standard Jamal Murray that we've seen as he's been a pro, where he'll have games where he looks like he could be one of the best players in the league. And then he'll have games where we're just like, how is this guy a starting guard in the league? So there are hot and cold moments for this guy. And we must not forget, he's been training for this his entire life. His dad has been training him boot camp style since he was like 3 years old, trying to train him to be the best player he can be and to be an NBA player, possibly a Hall of Famer is what he's like looking for. And every single time Jamal, when he was a kid, would miss a free throw, or what was it? Yeah, every time he'd miss a free throw, he'd have to run laps, and he had to make 100 free throws before every game. So that's pretty hardcore. So the fact that he made every single shot from the line in the last game, he must have just been thinking about his dad being at the line next to him, be like, you're going to run.
Yeah.
You didn't want to run.
That's a bigger pressure than anything else.
Right?
Your dad's that hardcore. I mean, that is prepare you for anything in life.
I just imagine like the water boy, how he like sees the people that have hated him and hurt him. Like he's just seeing his dad's face as the rim, be like, you're going to run laps, boy. Like I can just imagine that. And I think it's great. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, he's been playing so good lately. I am stoked to watch him and this Denver team play because honestly, I've said it last week when we were in our practice show. I think they're one of the teams to beat in the West, and I really do. And when they're playing at a high level, they're playing really, really good. And the series is tied at 2 apiece. But if let's say they go on and they play Houston, I think they can beat Houston. I honestly give them a fighting chance against Houston. Against the Warriors, I'm having a harder time seeing them get through. But, I mean, don't look past Portland. Portland can get in too. But if they get there and they have to play a Houston team, I honestly give them a shooter's chance.
Yeah. I like the depth that Denver has for sure.
Yes.
Even though the last couple of games, some of their better bench guards and Malik Beasley and Monte Morris didn't play as well. Last game combined for 8 points, 3 of 12 shooting. But Will Barton has really shown up, and he was struggling throughout the playoffs until his last 2 games. He was huge in the overtimes, even though Denver ended up losing in game 3. And then in game 4, he was 4 for 14 from the field, 11 points. Not exactly the greatest shooting, but Will Barton's a guy that is almost like a Lou Williams. And I think Lou Williams has ascended to the kind of the next tier now with a play this year and last year. But a guy who's going to come off the bench and not be afraid to shoot and not be afraid to score points. And like you said, in the infamous test show we had last week, Torrey Craig, once he's been inserted into the starting lineup, he's like a firecracker. He does everything on the floor. He's chasing after everyone. He's committing fouls, but maybe not being called for them. And he is just all over the place. He's a guy that I like to watch. And knowing what Denver has, I guess pieces wise, you looked at the team and you thought, okay, one of the best offensive teams in the NBA. Remember we were talking last week about kind of the preview of this series. Both of these teams were top 7 in scoring in the NBA coming in, at least in the regular season, and maybe not as well known for their defense. And both of these teams, whether, they've been scoring a lot of points, I think it's been very refreshing to see, I guess just like the effort level and the intensity that both teams are bringing on defense. And it goes to credit guys like Torrey Craig and Gary Harris and Mason Plumlee and Paul Millsap, who are playing excellent defense. Beasley, and for Portland, Al-Farouq Amino and Mo Harkless. Mo Harkless is not scoring very much in this series, but every time he's out on the floor, he is hounding someone. He is playing great defense. He's grabbing big boards. And even Enes Kanter, who is known as being one of the biggest defensive thieves as a big man in the league, has really shown at least an ability to make sure that Nikola Jokic is not going off for 50 every night. And he's doing a pretty serviceable job, given the fact that he's being known as one of the worst defenders in the NBA. So it's been a very, very fun series to watch. This game 4, maybe a 8.5 or a 9 on the entertainment scale, not the 10 that we saw in game 3, but hey, if we can continue to have those throughout, have a couple more games of that, I will buy that every day of the week.
Absolutely.
And then the final series that we have not touched on yet, Toronto and Philadelphia, they are tied at 4 games or 2 games apiece after 4. And I think there's really 2 guys who are defining this series so far, and that is Kawhi Leonard and his just phenomenal play. He played so well in game 4, 39 points, 14 boards, 5 dimes. He did have 7 turnovers, but 13 of 20 from the field, 5 for 7 from 3, including that huge dagger 3 with about 30 seconds left that all but sealed it, and playing his trademark excellent defense. So he's playing phenomenally. I think he's in the conversation right now for best player in the playoffs, best player in the world. And then on the other side of the coin is Joel Embiid. He had such a dominant game 3. He played so well. Let me bring up his stat line here. In game 3, in which Philadelphia blew out Toronto 116-95. He had 33 points, 10 boards, 5 blocks, had that windmill dunk at the end that really capped off the frenzy in the city of brotherly love. And in this past game, really was nowhere to be seen. 11 points, 8 boards, 7 assists. Now, afterwards, he said he had to have an IV before the game. He was sick as a dog, which he was also sick before game 2, and they said they're not related. Now, take this for a grain of salt, because I am not a beacon of, have not been known to be a beacon of health myself. But the fact that you are a professional athlete and you're getting like a stomach flu or food poisoning or whatever it is that have made you sick enough to need an IV and throwing up, and he almost didn't play in game 4. He went to Coach Brett Brown and said he might not be able to play the morning of. To have 2 separate incidents like that, combined with the injury history of Joel Embiid, combined with, I guess you could say, the kind of attitude he has. I don't think it's anywhere like a Kyrie, but he does have this kind of air that when things aren't going well and going his way, he kind of pouts a little bit more than you would want your number 1 player to do. He doesn't really carry himself with the same panache, the same swagger as a number 1 option like Kawhi Leonard does. I think the guy who's really carried that mantle for Philadelphia has been Jimmy Butler, who most people think is going to leave this offseason for a different opportunity. I think Philadelphia, if they let Jimmy Butler go now, granted, he may not be the favorite player to play with for anyone, but he has played so well. I think between Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard, we are seeing really the utmost in swingman 3 small forward play in the league right now on both sides of the ball. And you could say, obviously, a guy who is not in the playoffs, LeBron James, is still the preeminent number 3 in the NBA. Hey, he's not playing the playoffs, and he doesn't play a ton of defense anymore. I am loving what I'm seeing from both Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, both crashing the boards, really just showing everything they can to try to will their teams a victory. Jimmy Butler did it in game 3, Kawhi Leonard game 4. How do you see things shaken in game 5 and for the rest of the series?
Honestly, it's been the battle between Kawhi Leonard and Jimmy Butler, and that's it. That is all we've seen. Ben Simmons has been super inconsistent and super he just hasn't shown much of anything in this series. I don't know if they're shutting him down, if he got the Joel Embiid, poop problem.
They both went to the same takeout restaurant.
Honestly, it's like night and day difference between what he was able to do against Brooklyn and what he's doing now. I'm not saying he was great against Brooklyn, but he was a much, much better showing than this. Like, it blows my mind, the night and day difference that we're seeing. Joel Embiid, honestly, I think it's a multitude of different things. I think it's, one, injuries. I think the injuries are really stacking up against them, for a guy that gets as many minutes as he does and pushes his body at such a high level that the team really revolves around him. I think that between the sickness and the injuries, I think it's finally catching up to him. And we see this time of year. This time of year, if you have any inconsistencies in your game as far as injuries or, stuff's just not going right, it shines bright in the playoffs. So I think that's a big factor. And then you see, as far as Toronto, you can't really, there's like really no one that's getting their game going. Like Kyle Lowry, what have you seen him do? He had one good game.
Yeah, he had a good first half, and then he disappeared in the second half.
Exactly. Like, he needs to get more involved. Serge Ibaka played for Siakam. I never say his name right. Say it again.
Pascal Siakam.
Siakam. I always go Siakam. He was injured, and so we saw Serge come in, but how much are you going to trust Serge to really take over for that spot? So I honestly think it's going to be the battle of who wants it more, because both teams aren't playing at a high level. The only ones playing at a high level are Kawhi and Jimmy Butler. And heck, Jimmy Butler wasn't even on the team in February. So if you're watching this now, imagine what the series would have looked like had they not gotten Jimmy Butler. So it's just kind of mind-boggling to me. I think the series would be over possibly if they didn't have Jimmy Butler. But as far as who's going to win this game, I don't know why, but in my head, I want to give the advantage to Philly. Yeah. I truly believe that, one, they are the deeper team, and I feel like they have guys that are really, really in their prime. When they're playing well, they play as good as anyone in the East, as good as Milwaukee plays. But Toronto, they're right there. I think it's anyone's game. I really do. But I would probably lean more towards Philly.
You were talking about Ben Simmons and the difference between his play versus the Nets and now versus the Raptors. In 5 games against the Nets, he averaged 17 points, 7.5 assists, 6.5 rebounds, shot 63% from the floor, and averaged 5 foul shots a game. Now in Toronto, or versus Toronto, in the 4 games, he's averaging 10 points, 7 boards, 5 assists, shooting 56% from the floor. He has taken 3 free throws this entire series. There are 4 games, and he has taken 3 free throws. And he is a guy who is not obviously going to be shooting from deep. He is a terrible 3-point shooter, has not taken a single 3-point shot since I think 2019 started. And to be a point guard and not should be shooting at least 5 free throws a game with the body he has, and he's be able to drive, and with the athleticism he has, it is, I think, it is a little bit less talked about because Joel Embiid, he is kind of their alpha guy. He is the one that people have been predicting to be the number one since he came into the league after he got healthy. And there's always been holes in Ben Simmons' game with the shooting and the like, whereas Joel Embiid, it really doesn't have any holes except for maybe his fitness and his injury history. But you need to find ways to attack the game. When you're a point guard averaging less than 5 assists per game and less than a free throw attempt per game, it's not enough to just, play some defense and maybe grab boards at a higher rate than most point guards. He has to do something more. And I think if Philly wants to win this series, I think Ben Simmons is going to need to step up his game. I think Joel Embiid probably will, even if he doesn't become the 27.5 point per game scorer that we saw in the regular season. I think he'll be able to bounce back and play better basketball than we saw in a couple of games so far in this series. I think Jimmy Butler is going to be there. He's going to give all out effort. Maybe he might not shoot 50% every single game like he did in game 4, but I think he's going to be there. I think really the series hinges on the play of Ben Simmons. If Ben Simmons can step up, I think Philly can win this series. If not, Kawhi Leonard is just playing out of his mind, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. Anything to add on this series, Bobby, before we go to break?
Nope, it's just going to be a battle who wants it more, and we'll see who that ends up being, because Kawhi, I don't think he can hold this team on his shoulders for much longer if they don't start getting production.
Going back to really quick to Milwaukee, Boston, let's just end that series, please. Can we just end that and have the rest of these 3 series go 7 games?
Right.
I will do that every day of the week, because the rest of the 3 series have been really, really good series, and Boston, Milwaukee is pretty much, when I think of that, I just think of Giannis at the free throw line and Kyrie Irving pouting. So,
honestly, I am shocked that this series has been on completely one side. Going into this, I thought this was going to be the best series of all of them, going 7 games at least. And watching the other series, I feel like this is completely on par teams playing against each other. I thought Golden State and Houston on par could go either way. Nuggets versus Trailblazers, thought they were very similar teams, could go either way. And same with Philly and Philly and the Raptors. But to watch this series, I thought this one was going to be closer than all of those. And it's been so one-sided that it makes me just appreciate what Milwaukee's doing. So we'll move on from that.
At least think about Eastern Conference Finals, Milwaukee versus either 76ers or Toronto. That's going to be fun.
Now, have we said that 10 years ago, 5 years ago, that those would be the 2 teams in the Eastern Conference?
Right. I mean,
Philly.
Yeah. And both of them, I mean, for the next 10 years are going to be that way. You won't think, unless something crazy happens, someone requests a trade or a terrible injury or something.
Or the Knicks get their way.
When the Knicks get their way and Zion is just dunking from half court, winning 75 games a year. We'll see what happens. Esteban, don't make that happen. I know Esteban has special powers. He may try to conjure up some sort of spell that gets.
He's more concerned about the Jets right now.
That's true. That is true. Le'Veon, please don't blow out both your knees in our first practice. That's what he's thinking. All right. When we come back, Donald Cerrone, you could say he's on the 3rd upswing of his career, maybe 4th. He's still doing his cowboy thing. He had a great fight this past weekend. I forget where it was, but he beat El Iaquinta in a bloody fight. And then we got a pay-per-view coming up this weekend, and Jessica Andrade fighting for the strawweight title against Rose Namajunas. We will talk about both of those events when we come back. This is the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket and 101.7.
You're listening to the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio 1280 The Ticket.
So you get this idea for your company. Great. But then
it's too expensive.
Too complicated.
I want to say yes.
We've never done it that way before.
Yeah, no.
Nah.
Why now?
I liked it better before you explained it.
Start saying yes to your company's best ideas. American Express Open can help with money and know-how so you can get business done.
We can't do that, can we?
Yes, we can.
Visit open.com and see how American Express Open can help you get business done.
Ever wonder what ingredients are in Bud Light? Just check the packaging. We brew with hops, barley, water, and rice. Ever wonder what ingredients are in Miller Lite? You can't check the packaging. You have to go to their website, download a PDF, and scroll to page 10. There it is. Miller Lite brews with hops, hop extract, barley, water, and corn syrup. Bud Light, brewed with no corn syrup. Enjoy responsibly. Bud Light Beer, AB, St. Louis, Missouri. Based on information available at MillerCoors.com as of January 16th,
That's a bad thing, or that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah. 543 RIBS.
Attention, food lovers of the Central Coast. This is Brian from the Ribline. Let me tell you my top 3 favorite things in the whole world. My beautiful wife, Crystal, and my 3 children. This place I call home on the Central Coast. And
Did you see the live stream?
Ribline has been barbecuing our tri-tip, ribs, and chicken for over 25 years. Tender and juicy doesn't happen by mistake. We start with top quality meats and only use homemade dry rubs and barbecue sauces. We don't take any shortcuts when it comes to our Santa Maria style barbecue or anything else we do. Our attention to detail and the quality of our product shows in all our food, down to the last brush of barbecue sauce. Come into Ribline today for delicious homemade Santa Maria style barbecue and so much more. From grill and chill to wine and dine, it's always Ribline time. Ribline!
543 RIBS.
Milestone Tavern at Foothill in Santa Rosa with 72 beers on tap and happy hour Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 and nightly from 10 to 11 with great food and drink specials. Baseball is back. Milestone carries the MLB Extra Innings package, all Dodger games, and streams all Cal Poly Mustang baseball games. For all the great local charities, Milestone gives back as well. Contact them and ask how they can help with their community partnership program. Why not use all this great food and beer to raise money for great local causes? Always with plenty of free parking. Come into Milestone Tavern today.
Now, back to the SLO Late Show on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket.
We're riding through the dark night. We're half a tank and empty heart. Pretending we're in love, but it's never enough. Not as the sirens fill the lonely air.
All right, welcome in to the last half hour or so of the SLO Late Show, the return edition of the SLO Late Show. Alex Klepper, Bobby Goodsby here on ESPN Radio, 1280 The Ticket, 101.7 FM, TuneIn Radio, anywhere in the world, YouTube.com, search The SLO Late Show. We will be doing live broadcasts for every single one of our shows, so you can interact, you can chat with us, you can ask us questions. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be all interactive, and we hope you have some fun with us. It's been a fun hour and a half so far, Bob, and we got some MMA to talk about because everyone knows the Late Show. They like to talk some MMA. Before we dive into the UFC, did you see the knockout of the weekend, Bobby?
No, I missed it. What happened?
Okay, so Raymond Daniels is a Bellator fighter. He had one fight coming in, but he is mostly known as a kickboxer. He's 35-3 as a kickboxer. He's a world champion kickboxer. He fights for Bellator Kickboxing, but he fought his second ever MMA fight, and he is now 1-1 in MMA. And let me see if I can. Well, we'll do the video thing later, but try to find that KO, Bobby. Raymond Daniels. We'll describe it for the radio listeners here. He pretty much did a 720, faked doing a tornado kick, and then a right hook KO. He fought Wilkes Barrios. That was at Bellator Birmingham this past weekend. Not the greatest Bellator.
Woo!
Yeah. Well, he just.
Oh man, I just watched it. Here, I can pull it up on the screen share so it can show the people watching the YouTube stream while you're talking about it.
This is the benefit of having the YouTube channel. So Bobby's gonna pull that up, but yeah, Raymond Daniels now 1-1 as an MMA fighter. Now, I was trying to think of the best knockouts of the year, and this is definitely among the top 10. The other ones that I pulled up, and Bobby, I want you to give me your take on if this is better than these. The first one that came to my mind was, I think, in the first event of the year, Henry Cejudo knocking out TJ Dillashaw in 32 seconds to win the flyweight title. Wasn't exactly, highlight reel in the KO itself, but just the fact that it was so quick in a title fight. That was a big event.
So yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I've got it up right here. So let me see if I can get it for the people watching the live stream. Yeah. But absolutely amazing punch. Just spinning. Looks like he's gonna do some weird spinning back fist and just knocks the guy out cold. I love it. That's fantastic.
It was absolutely incredible.
Sorry, what were you saying before? I got distracted.
I was trying to figure out if it was the knockout of the year so far, and I was going through some of the contenders. There was Henry Cejudo knocking out TJ Dillashaw in 32 seconds. I said it wasn't really, the most amazing, just in terms of highlight. It wasn't a crazy kick or anything like that, but just being so quick against a dominant champion in TJ Dillashaw was a big deal. Then you had Johnny Walker, a couple of KOs by him in less than a minute. He beat Justin Leday in 15 seconds by spinning fist. I don't know what Bobby
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to go back to the call. There we go. I'm back.
There we go. We're back. Johnny Walker had 2 spinning back fists in 15 seconds over Justin Leday. Had a flying knee knockout of Misha Serkinov in 36 seconds. Jorge Masvidal knocked out Darren Till cold in the second round. Anthony Pettis, his second round Superman punch KO of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Justin Gaethje knocking out Edson Barbosa, and Josh Emmett KO Michael Johnson in the final minute. Now, I don't know if you've seen all of those, Bobby. I would say that the Raymond Daniels knockout that we just watched and have been talking about will probably go up there with the Anthony Pettis Superman punch knockout over Darren Till. I think those two are right now the co-leaders in the clubhouse for knockout of the year.
Completely agree with you. That Pettis one I thought was easily the best of the year up until this moment after watching that. And the fact that it happened so quick into the fight. Watching the Pettis one, I thought there was no way anyone could top that. I mean, I hadn't seen something like that since we saw Pettis and the spinning back kick to oh my gosh, why was blanking on his name?
Benson Henderson.
Benson Henderson, thank you. That will still to this day, and probably for the rest of my life, be the best knockout I will ever see.
Yeah.
With the using the cage and just kicking him right in the face to knock him out. I watched that live and I threw everything. I watched it live in slow. I threw everything that was on my lap up in the air. I was like, oh my gosh. It was just the best. And it was the last, I think it was the last fight in WEC history.
Yeah, it was.
What a way to go out.
It was. Yeah, that was. I remember watching it as well. I was watching it at Woodstocks, I believe, because they were whatever reason they had it on. I was shocked to see they had it on, but I was very happy that they did. One of the defining moments in, as you could say, the past generation of MMA, maybe one generation ago before WEC joined with UFC. Speeding up to this past weekend, UFC Fight Night Iaquinta versus Cowboy, which is held in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. Now I remember. It was on ESPN Plus. It was UFC on ESPN Plus 9. And Donald Cerrone, I can't really say turning back the clock because he has just he always has seen these ups and these downs, but he has, he'll win 4 or 5 fights in a row and then he'll lose 1 or 2 kind of in a bad way. And then you think, okay, well, this is it. This has got to be the time when Donald Cerrone is finally past his prime and he can't do this thing among the top anymore. You saw him lose to Leon Edwards back in 2018, the middle of 2018 in Singapore. And you thought, okay, well, maybe now it's time. He's since then rattled off 3 consecutive wins. He submitted Mike Perry in the first round. He knocked out Alexander Hernandez, one of the cockiest young guys you will ever see, for not really a good reason. I don't know why. He was just he wanted to do the Conor McGregor routine, and Cowboy Cerrone absolutely dominated him in this past one, which was the main event of this UFC on ESPN Plus 9 card. Didn't knock out Iaquinta, but not because of any fault of Cowboy Cerrone. He knocked Iaquinta down a couple of times. He had a front kick to the face, a la Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida, that knocked Iaquinta down. He just wasn't able to finish it off because Iaquinta is one of the toughest guys in the UFC. A phenomenal showing from Cowboy Cerrone. And now he's calling for 2 different things. He's calling for either a title shot, which I don't know if I would give him that much because there's so much stuff to get through in the lightweight division. Khabib, he needs to fight Dustin Poirier. I mean, that's number one, first and foremost. But then he said if he doesn't get that, he wants to fight Conor McGregor. That's the magic word, the magic fairy with a big pot of gold. I mean, I don't know if Conor McGregor is even going to fight again.
As I say, I'm pretty sure we've seen the last of Conor McGregor any time soon.
Yeah. So if that could happen, that would be a great fight. It would be. They talked about it last year, or I guess the beginning of this year. It never came to fruition after Conor's multiple legal troubles.
Yeah.
But hey, if they can get that going and Conor is somehow exonerated from his sexual assault case in Ireland, he already settled the thing with the cell phone in Florida. So that would be a fun fight to watch. Good to see Donald Cerrone continue doing it, even though he is now 36 years old. And talking about WEC, he was a star at WEC, but never really a main event guy. And now, in his years in the UFC, is the I think 23 wins in the UFC is the most ever, of 3 above Michael Bisping and George St. Pierre. So an incredible career so far for Donald Cerrone, and is not over yet.
But let's be honest, it's still Donald Cerrone. Like, he does this. He wins a big fight, or like a decent fight, and then maybe he wins 2 or 3 in a row, and then he gets one really big fight and loses. It's just, that's what his narrative has always been. He's always the type of guy to go on a little streak. Everyone gets excited, like, oh, finally, Cowboys at top form. Cowboys finally going to be that guy now that we all thought he could be. And then he loses. And then he drops down again. And then he loses again after already being dropped down. And then he starts to slowly make his way back up because Dana has a thing for him and can't let him go. He just continues to just stay alive. Like, I don't know, and I mean this in a completely great way. I don't know if there's anyone who's been a bigger leech to MMA than Donald Cerrone. The guy just somehow always sticks around and gets good fights or good, highlights on, or like gets to the top of the card, the fight card, but never ever will he win a championship. He hasn't, he won't. There's no way he's on the same level as some of those top tier guys, but we all love him. It's Donald Cerrone. It's Cowboy. He's, he's awesome. But yeah, no, I feel like we're just going down that same rabbit hole. And at what point, it's like a drug addict needing to like realize they just keep doing the same thing to themselves. They just keep hurting themselves. Like, they can't help themselves but go back to what they do. Everyone's like, oh, Cerrone, this is it. But we've done this how many times? Yeah. And hey, maybe it's the new motivation of having a kid. You see him now in the ring with his kid all the time. He's wearing his little earmuffs. Maybe that's going to propel him to continue to do good things. I agree with you. He's never going to win a title. He may somehow find himself back in the top 5 picture, but he's not going to sniff a title shot again. Not after what we saw against Rafael dos Anjos, which was way back in 2015. And Rafael wasn't that great of a fighter. Yeah. And not that he wasn't that great of a fighter. He wasn't that great of a champion. Right. He wasn't a legendary champion like some of the guys like Khabib, who is currently the lightweight. If Khabib fought Donald Cerrone, I mean, that would be not a good night for Donald Cerrone. No, and I'd go bet on that in Vegas in a heartbeat because you know what? That's a for sure win. Like, honestly, anyone that Khabib fights these days might be a for sure win. Yeah. But I really do feel like there's just no. If you told me Donald Cerrone or Khabib, I'd say Khabib 100% of the time. Yeah, 0.0 chance. Yeah. The only way Donald Cerrone wins that fight is if somehow Donald Cerrone's baby grows like to be 18 years old within the time frame at the start of the fight, runs into the cage, distracts him, a la like a WWE event. Khabib is looking around like, what's going on? Are we getting Conor McGregor again? Is the guy going to jump in the cage and attack me? And then head kick, knockout, Donald Cerrone, new champion. But I've got a better scenario than that. The best way Cerrone would beat Khabib is if Cerrone invited Conor McGregor as his personal ringside guest to the fight, so Khabib loses his mind thinking about Conor the whole time. It's the only way. That's not a bad idea. That's actually a really good idea. You should do that. Yeah. And all the guys that definitely Artem Lobov, bringing Artem Lobov, the guy who started the whole feud between Khabib and Conor McGregor in the first place. Yeah. Everyone be your invited guests in the front row. You know how they always kiss their girlfriend or whatever right before hug their family before they fight when they're getting checked out? Get Conor and all his guys involved right there. Yeah. That would be perfect. I like it. Let's get that booked. All right. So there wasn't really much else going on with that event. Derek Brunson decision over Elias Theodorou. They're talking about him as like a potential title contender. It's never going to happen. Never going to happen for Theodorou. He'll be a number 9 or number 10 his entire career. He'll have potential, but it'll never happen. Cub Swanson losing kind of a controversial split decision to Shane Burgos. I say controversial because one judge had 30-27 for Cub Swanson. One had 30-27 for Shane Burgos. You don't see that very often, and it's not really a good sign for the judges. But let's skip ahead to UFC 237 because that is happening this weekend in Rio de Janeiro, and we only got about 12 minutes left.
There's one fight in this prelim card, Bobby, that we need to talk about because it's between your favorite fighter of all time and I think one of your other favorite fighters of all time, BJ the Prodigy Penn, 16, 13, and 2, taking on Clay the Carpenter Guida, 34 and 18, the lightweight division. Bobby, why are these guys still doing this?
Wait, is this a Legends fight? I'm not understanding. Like, did they open up a new weight class? Because there's no way these guys should both be fighting. Like, honestly, I love me some BJ Penn. I really love me Clay the Carpenter Guida, one of my all-time favorite fighters. Oh, hello, almost dropped my phone. One of my all-time favorite fighters of all time. I said it twice, but whatever. The guy is an absolute monster. He's very similar to Donald Cerrone. Never can win the big fight, but man, does he put on a show. He could go for hours and not get tired and be getting his butt kicked and still be fighting at a high level. I love that guy. But yeah, no, honestly, this makes me want to get the card. I honestly, half the fights on this card I could really care less about. So I would love to just see that fight. I mean, is this going to be a battle for who has to retire? Like, is this?
I really hope so.
Is this like a WWE, must retire match or whatever?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like it. I kind of like it.
Okay. Do you know the last win in BJ Penn's career? The last time he won. Either give me the opponent or the date, like the year.
Oh, I can give you the opponent. So I'll say 2012.
It was Matt Hughes in 2010.
Oh, man.
His second nearest win was against Diego Sanchez when he defended the lightweight championship in 2009. Since then, since that win over Diego Sanchez, lost to Frankie Edgar, knockout of Matt Hughes, draw against John Fitch, and then 6 losses in a row to Nick Diaz, Roy McDonald, Frankie Edgar, Yair Rodriguez, Dennis Seaver, and Ryan Hall.
Have we seen? I mean, he's an absolute Hall of Famer, but have we seen a collapse like that ever? Like, this guy was one of the best. Did we all just look at him wrong, or is this just
he's
something
obviously doing this many years past his prime? And I think for certain guys, if they would have continued playing this long, you could have seen something like this happen. Like Chuck Liddell, he had a terrible end to his career, kept getting knocked out, got knocked out from a simple punch from Rich Franklin, who is also very deep into his career, should have been retired as well. And he got so knocked out so many times that Dana White's like, look, you have to stop. I will not let you fight again. And because BJ Penn is not getting knocked out violently, it's not the same impetus to get him out of there. And okay, I guess it's a good thing that he's not getting knocked out, but he got brutalized in the fights against Frankie Edgar and Yair Rodriguez by Roy McDonald. He is not doing well in these fights, and at least in his last fight against Ryan Hall, won against one of the lightest punchers in MMA, or at least the UFC, and really just known as a submission guy, but he got heel hooked in less than 3 minutes. A guy who is known for being a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu prodigy. That's what his nickname comes from, getting submitted in less than 3 minutes. So I really hope it's a retirement match for one of these guys. I can't say I'm expecting that to happen. I expect Clay Guida to win, and I expect BJ Penn to somehow find himself into another fight.
Honestly, this whole card is kind of like a battle of the legends. Like, we're going to see Nogueira fight.
Yes.
When was the last time you saw Nogueira fight?
Yeah, Lil Nog is fighting in the, what do they call it? The featured prelim. He is the last fight on the ESPN portion of this card. He fought September 2018. He beat Sam Alvey, but before that,
That's right.
2016. So he's had one fight in the last 3.5 years, or 3 years. So I mean, he is 42, I believe. Yeah, he's 42 years old. Maybe this is going to be a retirement fight for him. And then if you look at the pay-per-view portion, Francisco Trinaldo against Carlos Diego Fiera, Thiago the Pitbull Alves.
I mean, Alves, that's the name.
That is a guy who's also seen better days. Let's talk about the top 3 fights, because the other 2 fights, I mean, take them or leave them. Jose Aldo versus Alexander Volkanovski. The last time we saw Volkanovski, he was retiring Chad Mendes by knocking him out in one of really a great fight, both ways, a slugfest. Volkanovski is a former rugby player. I guess is there a rugby term? Rugby scrummer, maybe. But he used to be like 250 pounds back when he was playing rugby. And he is a phenomenal fighter. He's 19-1. Like we said, last time out, we saw him TKO Chad Mendes. Now he's fighting the legend in Jose Aldo, who is still only 32 years old, despite seemingly been around since the early days of the UFC. Last time we saw Jose Aldo knocking out or TKOing Hanato Moicano, before that TKOing Jeremy Little Heathen Stevens. I love Jose Aldo. I hope he wins this fight. He's one of my favorite fighters of all time. I just don't see him. I think this may be the time when we see like the real downfall, because Volkanovski is a huge hitter. He's a very big featherweight, and I see somehow this going poorly for Jose Aldo, even though it's something that will break my heart.
See, I disagree. I think Aldo's going to be the favorite. He is the favorite, but I think that he's got the best chance to win this fight. I think Volkanovski is very raw. I think he's got a lot of potential, but we're not so far removed from Aldo being one of the best guys in all of UFC. So I honestly think Aldo still has some gas in the tank, and I think this is going to be a great fight for both guys.
Sorry, if you were watching the live stream and you saw me get distracted, it's because I was just seeing a poodle on a scooter on the Top 10 Sports Center. Find that clip if you can. Poodle on a scooter.
What is this, ESPN 8 Ocho?
Yeah, yes. The odds right now, according to Best Fight Odds, Jose Aldo is a slight favorite. Is minus 125. Alexander Volkanovski at about 115. So it's a very close fight, but Jose Aldo is the favorite. I like that we have differing opinions. That's always a good thing to see. Has to have a little bit of a friendly wager maybe on it. The co-main event is Anderson the Spider Silva, who is 44 years old, going up against Jared Cannonier. Middleweight fight. Cannonier used to be a light heavyweight. His middleweight debut was his last fight out. He knocked out David, the executive branch, at UFC 230 back in end of 2018. And Anderson Silva, last time we saw him, he was the fill-in main event against the now interim middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. Put on a nice martial arts fight, I guess. There was a lot of spinning kicks, a lot of stuff, but I don't think Israel Adesanya was really going 100%. Anderson lost that by decision. He beat Derek Brunson by decision back in February 2017. That was kind of, I don't know about that one. We had only seen him fight once in the last 3 years. I think they're trying to give him Jared Cannonier to see him get a win and hopefully retire. And I say somehow Anderson Silva pulls it off. I say somehow he ends up knocking out Jared Cannonier.
Man, honestly, this whole card should be just everyone has to retire after this. This is your last chance. Like, when was the last time we saw Anderson Silva win a big fight? And this isn't even like a top 5, top 10 fight. Yeah. I honestly, I don't see it. I think Cannonier's going to do what pretty much we've seen everyone do against Anderson lately. And I think he's going to dominate him. I don't think he knocks him out, but I think it's going to go to decision. And I honestly think Cannonier is going to win this fight. I think after this, we got to say, Anderson, come on, it's time. You are the greatest fighter of all time. Let's not taint that legacy.
According to Best Fight Odds, Cannonier is going off as a favorite. He's minus 150. Anderson Silva plus 130 for the Spider. And in the main event, another very close fight by the odds. The challenger looks to actually be a favorite, Jessica Andrade, who fought against Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the title a couple of years ago and really got dominated. That was back in 2017. I think this is probably a better matchup for her going up against Rose Namajunas. We have not seen Rose Namajunas in, a year, a little over a year since she beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the second time. It's hard for me to get a feel of just how good Rose Namajunas is. She's looked great against Joanna Jędrzejczyk a couple of times, but she's only 8-3. She's still pretty young. She's 26 years old. She obviously has a lot of talent and a lot of skills and a lot of stuff to work with, but Jessica Andrade is just a little tank, and she has good striking, good wrestling. She knocked out Carolina Kowalkiewicz cold, which is not easy to do in the 115-pound division. She is pretty young herself. She's 27 years old. I'm going to say it's pretty close. I will give the slight nod to Rose Namajunas, though, just because I like her more. I like her story. I like her personality. I think she's a good ambassador for the UFC, the way she handles things and adversity and mental health. So I like Rose Namajunas, and I think I'll say she wins by submission because she has a couple submission wins to her belt. So she's paid off in the third or fourth round.
100% on board with you there, buddy. I think Rose wins this fight by submission. But I'll tell you what, Android just completely scares me. I don't. Not does she only scare me as in I couldn't fight her, I'd be terrified, but also in the fact that she terrifies me because I don't know what she's going to bring to the table. Yeah, I honestly have no idea how this fight can go. Mm-hmm. Like I'm thinking it's going to be around 3 or 4 submission. It could end up being a round 1 first 10-second knockout. We have no idea. But I honestly want to go with my gut, and I'm going to say Namajunas as well. I think that she's got a very good all-around game, and she knows. I mean, as we saw her do against Young Jacek, she knows how to win a big fight, and she retained her title by fighting Young Jacek again and proving that she's just the better fighter. So I think that we've seen her go against one of the best, if not the best in recent years. And I think that she's going to be able to retain her title again this time because I think we're going to see her fight a different type of fight to really prove that she's very well-rounded. I think if she wins this and is able to escape the pressure of Andrade's punches, I think we can say that she's going to be a very well-rounded fighter who's going to be scary going forward.
All right. Well, there you have it. UFC 237. Those are our picks for the main prelim and the top 3 fights. Got 30 seconds left. Hey, let's not forget Bellator has a really good, maybe their best card of the year this weekend as well. Michael Chandler, their lightweight champion, going up against one of the Pitbull brothers, Douglas Lima versus Michael Venom Page in a welterweight semifinal. So a lot of fights to watch this weekend, Bobby. We're winding down the clock here, but it has been a fun first show. We are very excited to be back on the air on 1280 and 101.7 and also on YouTube. And thank you so much for listening.
Check out our Twitters at Goodsby Bobby. Where they can find you, Alex?
At Alex Klepper.
Or the SLO Late Show at the SLO Late Show.
Yes, at the SLO Late Show. We'll start tweeting from there again. We're getting a website built. My fabulous fiance, Jamie Andriozzi, setting that up. Until next week, thank you for listening.
We're back.
Live feed friends. Good night.
All right. Thank you, live